Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. This is Wilbert Mkori. Tonight, I would like to talk about a video that has been leaked, an audio that has been leaked out in the social media, and it has been well circulated among Zimbabweans. And it concerns a leaked commentary by a retired army officer criticizing Zanu PF corruption and mismanagement. Let's just have listen to it and then we'll discuss it.
Kuita kudisappear. But unongomuna achikuudza zvemasanctions. But back then hapana kana one sanction raivepo. Kwakusina kana sanction. Vanhu varume ava vakangopindwa neDNA yeumbavha. And it's a problem yekuti munotora munhu achibuda musango muchimuisa muoffice. Akomana, kuita liberation war veteran does not qualify you to be a government minister. It does not qualify you to become a civil servant. Because this guy is a military operative. And you find that team rakapinda government arina kuita demobilize from the war mindset. Avana demobilization program. These guys were not rehabilitated. From bush to office. Anna Ronald from bush to office. Anna Emerson from bush to office. No rehabilitation, no psychological assessment. No demobilization. Good guys, let us go down. That's why I'm going to Tonga Hondo. But you go Hondo every time. Why? They will never demobilize these people. Vachirufunga kuti vachitori Mozambique so vamwe ndosamjona vachirota vachikwakuka makwenzi vachirota vachidhingirirwa because havana kuita scale down from the Mozambican war kwavaiva vari based kunana chimoyo nyadzonya vakangouya from bush to office. And the next thing that the lens is how to get rich quick. Vatanga kuba. But nhasi munodwa zvemasanction. Vakomana vatanga kuba kudhara. Chibaga china kubiwa here nakumbira ikangaya apo pa GMB apa. Kumbira ikangaya akaendesa chibage chikashaikwa. Nyika ikashaya chibage so panguva yenzara. Patanzi matura akazara. Lion Den takazadza matura eGMB takazadza matura ko. Kunotarisa kuda mama amuna kana chibage. Kumbira ikangaya akaba chibage. Mukabaka mnyajiswa akafaya kumbira ikangaya. Inema here. Inema here. Kumbira ikangaya akaba chibage nje nyika yose ikapinda nzara. Tabiwana nakangaya mbava dzevanhu. Frederick Shava, the foreign minister, he's a willow gate scandal. Akatobatwa kuti imbavha kuwilova but akadzoka akaitwa minister of foreign affairs Frederick Shava. He was involved pa Willowville scandal. Jacob Mdenda mbavha pa Willowville yo but akadzoswa nekubhekdo vanhu vakambodzinga namugabe vesava. Frederick Shava akadzingwa namugabe anditi uyo mbavha futi Mudenda akadzingwa futi namugabe uyu mbavha futi akadzingwa.
Well, we are not going to play the whole thing. What do you say, Ben?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me on the program, and to our viewers, thank you for joining us. I think it's something that people needed reminding of. This is not a news story. Maybe for those that did not know about, a little bit of history on how Zimbabwe came to be in this year devastating stance is because of all these corrupt activities that were happening, during the 1990s and 1980s, just when Zimbabwe gained independence. I agree with the ex general. I agree with him to say the corruption that is in Zimbabwe is so rampant, and the worst part is that they keep recycling the same characters. But what I do not agree with him is the fact that he says we should blame it on because they were not demilitarized. No, 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 no. I think let us not give excuse for incompetence.
Well, I totally agree with you. I think the excuse that it was the failure to demobilize them properly uh, uh, is to blame. Is I think it's naive. Zimbabwe is not the only country that gained its independence after a protracted war of liberation, and uh, many other countries did the same thing, and they were able to move uh, seamlessly almost from the war situation to become a healthy and functioning democracy. We did not. And I think that is where I want to explore it. Why did we fail to move from this mentality of liberation to become a healthy and functioning democracy, but instead became a corrupt, tyrannical kleptocracy, government of thieves? Why, in your opinion, did we move in that direction?
I think it all comes down to the mentality and the people that were set to be in leadership. I think we did not have that we did not have and we still do not have the right individuals that can actually lead us places like that can move Zimbabwe forward. Ours is one way we we are using, we're not thinking outside outside the parties. We're not looking for individuals. We are not searching hard enough. We are not questioning why are we choosing such a character in the first place. We are choosing by association. Who does he belong to? Who does he know? Just like and these are breeding grounds, let me say, for corruption. Who do you know? Who are you associated with? Are you associated with Zanu PF? Are you associated with Chamisa? Are you associated? This is not the right questions that we're supposed to be asking. We're not looking, for competency. Rather, we're looking for association, and this leads to corruption, and you know, it's all sorts of unbelievable, you know, uh, messes like the ones that we are creating right now, if I may say.
Well, I would have said that the leadership issue is a serious problem. Let's face it, there were individuals who went in to join the armed struggle because they genuinely believed in freedom, justice, liberty for all Zimbabweans, regardless of the race, regardless of the gender, regardless of the tribe. But there were also some who joined the war of liberation because they genuinely saw it as an opportunity for them to come back in independent Zimbabwe and become the new lords and claim their reward. There cannot be any denying of that. In fact, if anybody did it, Mugabe himself is the one who kick-started that mentality. Within a few weeks, few months of getting into power, Mugabe replaced the Peugeot 404 or 406s that Ian Smith had for his cabinet with the E-Class Mercedes-Benz limousines. That kick-started this culture of patronage and chef culture. where you are now a chef, you are entitled to all the riches of the country. Those Mercedes-Benz, when Mugabe issued them, they've not been budgeted for. Cabinet itself had not even discussed them. But he knew that giving the ministers sitting there before him, he was buying their blind loyalty. And that's kickstarting this culture of, I'm a chef. I have got the right to the juiciest fruits in the country before everybody else. And so that culture permeated very quickly into the rest of society. So you find chief executives of parastatals like ZESA, NRZ, Zisco Steel, they were spending a fortune buying cars for their chief executive officer and the senior management when they could not pay the ordinary workers, when they could not provide the basic service, if it was ZESA, electricity to the people. But that was secondary. The most important thing is let's look after our top managers. And that culture has permeated the country to the point where we are today. Corruption has become rampant. Once you have sown the seed, it really is very difficult to uproot it. And so it has permeated right up to the opposition party itself. And so we have moved from Zanu PF to the opposition. And I think you'll agree with me that the corruption and mismanagement is also prevalent in the opposition, Ben.
Yes, I agree. I mean, this is how easy it is to to infiltrate them, if that is the right word. You find, look, for me, one of the main reasons for participating in rigged elections is that, for example, I want to give an example. You pay $1,000 for you to, let me say it's a registration fee for you to contest to be a member of parliament, knowing that within a few months after winning your parliamentary seat, your $1,000 will turn into 40,000, and then you can get a car on top of that 40,000. Surely that is a very good and sound lucrative business. That is the amount of corruption that has gripped Zimbabwe, let me say, as a whole, not just Zanu PF, but even the opposition itself. So yeah, I do agree with you.
Yeah, I think to take it back actually to the opportunities, if people look at 43 years of Zanu PF tyrannical rule, during that 43 years, we cannot deny we had the opportunity to implement the democratic reforms which would have ended the Zanu PF dictatorship. And the golden opportunity actually came during the 2008 to 2013 GNU. MDC failed to implement even one reform during that period. Why? Because Mugabe bribed them. The same way he bribed his own Zanu PF cabinet members and senior leadership. He did the same thing with Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDC friends. Gave them the E-Class Mercedes-Benz ministerial cars, generous salaries and allowances. And for Morgan Tsvangirai, the $4 million US dollar mansion in Highlands. And they, of course, forgot about the reforms. Not even SADC leaders were nagging MDC leaders throughout the GNU to implement the reforms, could get them to implement any reforms. That is how corrupting Zanu PF had become. And so this issue of corruption, if we can dwell all we want on, oh, Zanu PF is corrupt, it is tyrannical, but the truth of the matter is Zanu PF has extended their rot to the opposition too. And after 23 years of MDC Triple C, they failed to implement even one meaningful reform. And hence the reason why last year Zanu PF was able to blatantly rig the elections. And you're absolutely right. They participated in those elections knowing fully well that the elections were flawed, knowing fully well that by participating, they'll be giving Zanu PF legitimacy. But they still participated because they were after the few seats that Zanu PF was giving out. And even when SADC and the AU had condemned those elections, those MDC Triple C leaders who had won the seats still went ahead and accepted the seats in defiance of SADC and the AU. Even if SADC wanted to punish Zanu PF for rigging the elections last year, they could not. How could they if the opposition are happy? And the argument given by the opposition is the most idiotic answer you could possibly get. Oh, we were to secure those areas as liberated zones. The elections were condemned because we did not even have something as basic as a verified voters roll. And that applied to the whole country, not just to rural constituencies that the opposition did not win. The whole country. And if you think you can selectively say, oh, those areas where we had won the seats, the elections are free, fair, and credible, and those where we had lost, they were not free, fair, and credible, forget it. Elections are just judged as a whole process and not have individual islands where you can pick and choose. Or these areas it's okay, these areas it's okay. There the elections were rigged. No. But Triple C leaders, some of them, in fact, when even Chamisa himself tried to tell them that they should not accept their seats, they told them no. You know, like you correctly mentioned there, I've spent $1,000 paying the fee for contesting. And most of them said, well, we paid for our own campaign. And I've got to get a return on that investment. And so they told him no uncertain terms that they were going to accept those seats because they wanted the goodies of being on the gravy train. You know, the $60,000 allowance for a car, the 40,000 housing allowance, the generous salary, the generous allowance, you know, and those are the things that they went in for. So corruption is permeated into the opposition. And I think the other main point which I think we should focus on is why is it that the people of Zimbabwe have failed to see that the opposition is no longer doing what the people wanted them to do, i.e. implement the reform to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. I think that's the last item I think we should focus on, Ben.
Yes. I think it's not a matter of they cannot see or they're not able to visualize. People know this is what is happening, but people have taken a defensive approach like I said earlier. Now it's about association. It's no longer about is delivery from an individual or you know what is that person selling? Is his idea viable, right? You know, merit. So what I think is going on is no matter how badly an individual or an organization, let's say, for example, how badly Zanu PF is handling business in Zimbabwe. As long as I'm a Zanu PF supporter, I will stand by it no matter what. I will go to an extent of defending it. This is what is happening in Zimbabwe. The same would happen with the opposition. I mean, it's on record. It is not me that said it. It is on record. Chamisa said he would win these past elections, and he delivered nothing. So then, when some people ask to say, "But he promised this," I mean, you are looking for trouble. People will defend, and they will go all arms, on you to defend their leader. But this is something that was promised, but delivery, there is nothing. So this is where we are. It's not that people do not know that, they're being shortchanged, but people have gone to an extent of now defending their parties instead of questioning. So this is just, I think we are the worst, enemies. We are our own worst enemies, basically. That's what I think.
Well, I'll agree with you. I think I'll put it slightly differently there. That in this particular case, those people who voted for the opposition voted for change, but they never really understood what that change is. And therefore, then, even when the opposition had the golden opportunity to implement the reforms, as we said during the GNU, and they failed to do so, the ordinary person, the ordinary voter out there, the ordinary typical Triple C supporter, did not understand that. If you don't understand what the reforms are, you're also not going to understand how they are implemented. And therefore, then, if the fact that the opposition failed to implement them, that is also water off a duck's back. You don't understand how that works about. So in this particular case, you will continue thinking, no, the opposition is correct. But I think it's all a matter of ignorance. The people of Zimbabwe, the electorate, are so ignorant and naive and gullible. It's unbelievable. Even when we refer to the item of the voting last year, when Chamisa told them that he had plugged the holes to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections, like it or not, 2 million people believed him. They participated in the elections confident that Triple C was going to win big because Chamisa said so, because Chamisa had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Ignorance has been one of the if not the greatest weakness in Zimbabwean political practice. And that has undermined our ability to form a healthy and functioning democracy. A healthy and functioning democracy is not possible until you have got an educated, knowledgeable, and diligent electorate. And the Zimbabwean electorate is none of those things. None. If you can't understand what reforms are, even now, after 43 years, you still don't understand what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections. In this day and age, one has got to say, well, I despair. People like Mnangagwa, of course, will exploit that ignorance. The opposition will exploit that ignorance. Right now, the people have failed to see the linkage between they risked everything to vote the opposition to implement the democratic reforms designed to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. What Mugabe did during the GNU was to open the door, welcome these opposition leaders, bribe them so that they forget about reforms. And they've since been participating as opposition, and they are never ever going to implement any reforms. And the ordinary voters have failed to see that, even after 23 years. That is the level of ignorance we're talking about here. After 23 years, 5 of which in the GNU, the opposition have not even implemented one meaningful token reform. In other words, they're not going to implement any reforms. And yet the ordinary voter, still the penny has not dropped, still believe that the opposition will bring about change. How? So I think in this particular case, that is our biggest problem. And it is tragic that we now are locked up in this system where Zanu PF has become incredibly powerful. The wealth of people like Mnangagwa there is unbelievable. Yesterday we were being shown his farm, how wealthy it is, a unique breed of cattle he keeps at his farm, and the fact that his president has given him access to all kinds of wealth. And these ministers, they are all doing very well. Some of them, if you go to their mansion, you find a fleet of posh cars. Earlier on, we were showing him sitting next to his vice president, Chichwenga. He has got a fleet of cars. When he divorced his wife, you'll hear the number of cars that he has, and they are now being divided, the farms, the business, and so forth. And the same applies to all the other ministers. These people have become so powerful now that any opposition that tries to challenge them, they can go and bribe them, give them a farm, give them a Mercedes Benz. And most of these people, these opposition guys, will be no richer than you and me, if they've got a house at all, a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom house, and before they become a leader of any prominence, staying and struggling to pay bills like everybody else. And when you're suddenly told, don't worry about opposition, being an opposition leader, you do what we tell you and we'll give you a farm or a house with a car, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and so forth. These people will do anything that you want. So that's how powerful this Zanu PF has become. And this is why it is so difficult to change in Zimbabwe. But I think change can come if the people themselves wake up. And there lies the real challenge. How do you wake up somebody who is so naive and so gullible that they can easily be conned into believing that Chamisa has plugged all the vote rigging loopholes? I find that to be laughable. I must say, I really find it unbelievable that anyone could be so dumb and
well, I would give it to the rural folk. I would expect the amount of naivety, or leniency of naivety to be given to the rural folk. The aunties and grandpas that are in the rural folk that wouldn't know better. But now you find out that there is actually a lot of people within the towns, the well-educated ones, that are actually in support of this nonsense, which actually goes on to show that it's an uphill battle for Zimbabwe to get itself out of this whole mess. If you find that the learned are the ones that are pushing, for such ridiculous, you know, strategies that are given by opposition, and some of them are actually in support of what Zanu PF is doing because they are corrupt themselves. So you find we are kind of between a rock and a hard place. So it's going to be very, very difficult. This is why I urge people to start thinking for themselves. I've always said this. It's Let us put away our political affiliation for now, and think for ourselves, because we all need a better life than what we are being exposed to right now. Unless if you feel comfortable with the way Zimbabwe is, of which I don't think. Let's think. Okay, maybe you may be making money now, but think of the future of your children. This is why we need to. These are the people that we need to be thinking about, and not being selfish, continuous. And unless we do so, I foresee our kids are going to be exposed to the same treatment that we are treating others, or even worse.
Thank you very much, Benjamin, and to the listeners, thank you very much. We'll meet again tomorrow, same time, 6 o'clock, where we will have an open discussion, no holds barred, on a current issue of the day. And good night.
Thank you. Good night.